Howdy, howdy. Good morning. Let's get started here. Sorry. All right, let's begin our morning japa. Be sure to share and invite others to chant along with us this morning. So we have a nice, good group of devotees, spiritualists, yogis, engaging in daily sadhana. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Gita Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Very well. So, the verse of the week is chapter 6, text 46. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a. Last 2 days we've gone over the tapasvi. The tapasvi is not an Ashtanga yogi. A tapasvi is someone who engages in the first 5 stages of Ashtanga yoga, right? Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. A person who engages in those 5 things, that's a tapasvi. Hiranyakashipu was a tapasvi. Was he a yogi? Of course not. Hiranyakashipu was a tapasvi because he engaged in those first 5 stages of Ashtanga yoga. He was not a yogi. A yogi engages in dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. A jnani is not a yogi. A karmi is not a yogi. Krishna is making a very clear distinction between a tapasvi, a jnani, and a karmi. A yogi is different. We're going to focus a little bit, spend some time today, on understanding the difference between a jnani, someone who requires understanding based on the acuity of their senses, their intelligence, and their mind. They pursue, they engage in study of the scriptures. They engage in even meditation, some acts of sadhana. But there must be a reciprocal understanding based on their personal experience. It has to be, I wouldn't even say personal experience, I would say a sensory understanding. their realization, their maturity, their growth in jnana is dependent upon their experience being something that is tangible or intellectually explicable. That's a jnani. In other words, to put it in short, a jnani does not operate on faith. Faith. A jnani does not. A jnani actually abhors faith. A jnani wants to see the evidence. A jnani wants to see how is if I do this, for example, chanting Hare Krishna, right? We know the saying by Srila Prabhupada, chant and be happy. If you chant, your life will be sublime. That is not a scientific statement. That is not evidenced in reality. That experience cannot be transferable. Because Srila Prabhupada can chant and experience prema bhakti, if I chant, I do not. So the experience of prema bhakti from chanting is not transferable. It is therefore not scientific in the definition of something that is empirically understood, something that is scientifically understood. So a jnani has to be explicable. It has to be rational. It has to be logical. That's a jnani. A yogi recognizes that there will be a measure of faith because we cannot know everything. We cannot know everything, even on a material level, what to speak of spiritual reality. So a jnani is limited. We have a very, I would say, a very a pervasive problem within the spiritual community, whether it be ISKCON or other organizations or communities, where spiritual jnanis without understanding the aspect or the necessity of coming to yoga. We become very good at understanding the scriptures. We become very good at understanding the concepts, the principles taught in Vedic teachings or in spirituality. But we forget the part of faith, belief, the part of spirituality that is inexplicable to our material mind and senses. There is that saying, apparently this was asked of Srila Prabhupada. Those of you who may not know Srila Prabhupada, he is the Bhakti yogi, the Vaishnava who came to the United States in the 60s and brought the famous Hare Krishnas, right? He was the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. So the story goes that Srila Prabhupada was once asked by a rather cheeky college student. And this person asked Srila Prabhupada, can God create a mountain that he cannot lift? Trying to catch Srila Prabhupada in a compromising situation in terms of what God can and cannot do. And Srila Prabhupada's answer was, and this is, I haven't supposed, that Srila Prabhupada's reply was, yes, Krishna can create a mountain he cannot lift, and then he'll lift it. This is the fundamental difference between a jnani and a jnana yogi. A jnani would say, well, Srila Prabhupada, that makes absolutely no logical sense. Either God can do it or he cannot. These two principles cannot exist in the same time and space. It's like saying, if you lit incense underwater, would it smell like roses or would it smell like jasmine? The premise is wrong. You cannot light incense underwater. That's a jnani. A jnani says either Krishna can create a mountain and that he cannot lift, in which case he's not God, or you can't have both of those realities in the same time and space. They're mutually exclusive. That's a jnani, and a jnani would be stuck in that space. I was relaying this particular story to a friend, and this is even though this person was a very, very, in my own opinion, much more knowledgeable person in Krishna, in spirituality and Vedic teachings, this person was stuck in the Jnani mentality, because the person said, well, actually, no. The answer is, of course, the person did not contradict Prabhupada, but the person saying, well, yes, what happens is you have to see it like this, is that Krishna will create the mountain and then Balaram will lift it. And because Krishna and Balaram are simultaneously one and different, then that solves the problem of that conundrum. And absolutely, that's a very logical and rational way of describing this particular statement. Of course, then we have to talk about how is Krishna and Balaram simultaneously one and different, but that's another issue entirely. But this person was seeking a logical, rational explanation of that principle. That's a Jnani. A Jnani requires things to make logical, rational sense. And we spiritualists, we get lost because spirituality requires intellectual ability. It does require, that we have 2 or 3 IQ points. Not necessary, but it helps. But oftentimes we get, especially in the organization of which I'm a part, ISKCON members often get very, very, myself included, stuck and mired in trying to make sure all of the various concepts and conflicts in the philosophy make sense. And all kinds of convoluted mental gymnastics and verbal gymnastics are used to try to make spiritual principles and concepts make logical, rational sense. In other words, we are supposed to be yogis. Krishna's admonishing Arjuna here, all of us, to be yogis. But we get lost and we become jnanis because we search for a logical, rational explanation to concepts that are beyond our material intellect to understand. So when we say, and that's why Prabhupada's answer was the perfect answer. Yes, Krishna will create a mountain he cannot lift, and then he'll lift it. It does not make rational sense. It is completely illogical and is absolutely, it makes no sense. That is love. That is Bhakti Yoga. That is connecting with the Supreme, means most of what we encounter of the Supreme is going to be inexplicable, illogical, and irrational. That's why yoga is better than Jnani. The yogi is better than the Jnani because the yogi has space, has the ability to recognize, you know what? The Supreme can do it. The Supreme can create a mountain that he or she cannot lift, and then the Supreme will lift it. And even though it may be contradicting on a certain level, the Jnana Yogi recognizes that seeming contradiction to me, to my senses, to my idea of what is logical and rational is irrelevant to the Supreme. That's why the yogi is greater than the empiricist. That's what makes a Jnana Yogi superior to the Jnani. The Jnani cannot fathom that the Supreme can create a mountain that the Supreme cannot lift. A Jnani cannot wrap their head around that contradiction. A Jnana Yogi can. A Jnana Yogi will realize that truth, will experience that truth. Now, that truth is not transferable. The Jnana Yogi cannot give that realization that the Supreme can create a mountain that the Supreme cannot lift and give that realization to the Jnani. The realization is non-transferable. So the Jnani is stuck. That's why Krishna says, be a yogi. The tapasvi is stuck. The Jnani gets stuck. The karmi gets stuck unless we add yoga. And yoga simply means connecting to the Supreme. We can use tapasya to connect to the Supreme. We can use jnana to connect to the Supreme. We can use karma to connect to the Supreme. As long as we know, as long as we are attempting to connect with the Supreme, then there can be progress. Then there can be advancement. Then there can be spiritual maturity. So this is the difference between the Jnani and the Jnani Yogi. Oh, well, look at that. We have a question. I'll read it out loud. When you say yogi, is it bhakti yogi? Oh, good Lord, very good question. For this particular verse, no. For 646, I'm not saying bhakti yoga because we're going to go to the questioner is jumping one shloka ahead. We're going to go over this next week. No, when Krishna is talking about the yogi is greater than the ascetic, the empiricist, and the karmic, he's not, at this point, in this verse, Krishna is not saying bhakti yogi, not specifically. In fact, Krishna doesn't even mention the word bhakti until chapter 7. Krishna does not mention the word bhakti. Actually, he does. He calls Arjuna a bhakta in chapter 4. But as a process, as a method of spiritual development, Krishna does not even mention the word bhakti yoga as a process until chapter 7. So here in this verse, 646, Krishna doesn't, as Vaishnavas, we infer bhakti yoga, but Krishna's not talking about bhakti yoga just yet. That's coming in the very next verse. In this verse, when Krishna says a yogi is greater than the tapasvi, the jnani, and the karmi, Krishna is simply saying the person who is attempting to connect with the Supreme is better than the tapasvi who is not doing that, better than the yogi who is not, better than the jnani who is not doing that, better than the karmi who is not doing that. As we mentioned yesterday, and we'll wrap it up here. Thank you for the question. I do appreciate it. One thing that's very important, the tapasvi, the jnani, and the karmi, they're all dharmatmikas. They all follow the principles of dharma. That's key, because by following the principles of dharma, they're able to be eligible to receive transcendental knowledge from the devotees, from Krishna, and thereby become connected to the Supreme by the causeless mercy of the devotee in Krishna. So they are dharmatmikas. That's a very, very important and fundamental principle to always remember. The tapasvis, the jnanis, and the karmis are all dharmatmikas. They are very highly elevated, highly exalted personalities. But without coming to the point of where they're able to understand or appreciate the idea that there is a Supreme with whom they can have a relationship, they're going to be stuck on that level. So the yogi is simply the person who can accept the idea. They may not have their neophyte in the yoga process, right? So they may not have the realization that there is a Supreme with whom they can connect. They may not know how that connection can be made, but they're open to the possibility. That's why I love agnostics. I love agnostics. Agnostics are open to the possibility that there is a Supreme. I may not know how to connect. I may not know what the process is, but they're open to the idea that there's something more than just what I can experience with my mind and senses. I have babbled on for quite some time. We all have to head to work. Remember, so share this with friends and family. We want to get up to having 108 persons joining in our sadhana. So share this with your friends and family so we can have a wonderful community joining in our sadhana morning and evening. I'm here 7:30 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a wonderful day. Work towards uplifting oneself, transforming oneself, and uplifting and transforming others. Hari Hari.